Welcome to the Hour of Empowerment. Today we are in season 3, which is organizational development, and we are discussing topic 2, which is team development, and we are in episode 4 interview. Today here in our studio we have Gabe Hamda. Gabe has a PhD and he is a senior professional human resources, and he is the founding president and CEO of ICAT Inc. ICAT improves organizational performance through customized training, contract staffing, and system security. Gabe considers himself a job creator and a power networker. Gabe enjoys walking, occasional afternoon short snaps, college football, storytelling, as well as meeting and greeting complete strangers. During the last 2 years, Gabe has been engaged as a volunteer conducting the Power of Networking workshop at various professional and community organizations. Gabe presented Power Networking workshop at the Ethiopian Family Builders Group in Alexandria, Virginia, Emmanuel Bible Church quarterly career seminars in Springfield, Virginia, Florida State University Instructional Design Conference in Tallahassee, Florida, and Federal Training Officers Consortium Conference in Norfolk, Virginia. If you wish to have Gabe present a free 1-hour Power Networking seminar for your group, contact Gabe at gabe.hamda@icat.net. Gabe, thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Before we proceed, I would like you to share your background to our audience so that they may know you a little bit more.
Well, as you described, I'm from Ethiopia. I've been in America quite a few years, and my background is human resources, instructional system design. I consider myself more like a community activist, in a way, job creator. So in a nutshell, that's me. Love football, as you said. I love those little naps every now and then.
Yeah, I have seen some of your activities in Ethiopian community where you have been also taking some initiatives. You have been team member and also leader of some community teams among Ethiopian communities. So you have experience. I don't see any other person to interview on this special topic on team building.
Thank you. I'm ready for it. Let's do it.
Yep. I know it is obvious and straightforward, but I want to clear the air. Why should we worry about forming teams? Why don't we just go out and do it by ourselves than going to the trouble to form, nurture, grow, and lead teams?
Good question. First, I think let's define some terms related to teams. One is, what is a team? A team is where there is 2 or more people engaged in solving complex issues. Also, teams require their own development. So teams are effective when there is ample time to develop the team itself. So that's a team. Maybe if you want to give an example of a team, for example, within the U.S. Congress, the Democratic Party is a team. The Republican Party is a team. So those are just examples that people know. Then there is another term we need to define, which is a group. A group is a collection of people who are in the same space. They may have a loosely defined maybe purpose. At times they may be fighting. At times they may be in conflict. I think if we are on the topic of Congress probably is a good example of a group. Within the group, there are teams with a defined purpose and they look out for one another, but the group may be sometimes fighting and you don't know why they are there. So that's a little bit about group. And also there is teamwork. Teamwork is team-like, but it could be done by one person, an expert. And a good example is my wife has been a volunteer with elementary school where my daughter goes to school. And she's been organizing Heritage Night. And she was the leader. She had all the idea, and she used different parents to bring in food, or different singers and different performers. So that's called teamwork. So she used teamwork to get the job done. It's not really a team. They did not plan together. They did not organize together. So there is teamwork, there are groups, and there are teams. And whenever we talk about teams, we talk about a meeting. A meeting is where teams and groups do business. it's a most important currency whenever we talk about teams. So meetings become a very important tool. So just want to define those terms because I'll be referring to them later on.
Okay.
So back to your question, there are times when teams are not necessary. For example, if you have an expert who can get it done, why bother about teams? Get the expert, figure it out, right? So back to what I said, teams are only essential if you have ample time for the teams to work things out and have a complex issue. Other than that, teams are not always the most effective way to do business because it's time consuming and a whole lot goes into it. So hopefully that will help.
Yeah. So the question is, when you can do it by yourself or with experts, that's fine. But most of the things we would like to achieve, especially at community level, at organizational level, they require us to have teams, effective teams.
Yes.
So we can't really do it, even if we want to do some of the most significant things in our community or in our organization or in our country. It is impossible for one person, even if that person is great expert on that particular topic.
Absolutely. Let me give an example. I think you set up a very good question right here. Let's talk about our community. And there are great people with great ideas, and there are many good causes. And one need I've seen many times is a lot of these groups and individuals with great ideas don't have resources, and they tend to use fundraising to achieve those goals, which is the most inefficient way to get funding and resources. And I think a team is an effective way maybe to even say, okay, given this growing community, there are resources. What are the best ways to generate resources for these causes? So a teamwork may be an effective way to find solutions for a problem that we don't have an answer, if you follow me. So it means no one person has a solution, but as a team, it is through brainstorming, through thinking, and through creation is to find solutions. I'll give you one quick example.
Okay.
Yesterday, my colleague Susan and I were developing a proposal to be submitted to a client.
Okay.
And none of us had a complete solution how to develop a budget. So Susan knew the work, and I have some idea about the work. But together, when we met, none of us had the solution. But together, we spent an hour or two deliberating. And then in the end, we came up with something that none of us individually had. So the real purpose of a team is when you don't have an answer, but together you birth and you create an answer.
That's a wonderful explanation. Let's talk about, when did you first acknowledge the importance of team for your personal and organizational goals?
Good question. Let me tell you, Assegid, there are maybe 50 or 60% of the time I have not done things right when it comes to teams. And I think the first time I came to that realization was when I was kicked out of a team. What did I do at the time? I was talking too much. And when I was talking too much, I was asking too many questions. And I was challenging authority, or I was challenging the client. And then my boss was told, this guy is not a good team member, so we want him out. So I think the word he used was, Gabe, you are uninvited from this team because you are not helping. That's the best thing that happened to me. So it gave me a wake up call. It's a wake up call for me to say, you know what? Sometimes you keep your mouth shut. Sometimes you play along. So I think that was a start of realization. And I always thank my boss for giving me that information that I was not a good team player. So that was a turning point.
I mean, reaching that point is very important for many successful people because, individually we may be great, we may be excellent, but when it comes to teamwork, we need to understand that we are working together with people from diverse background, from diverse interests, and so on. So we have to make sure that we are just part of a group of people. That way, as you say, sometimes we speak, sometimes we shut up, and sometimes we listen, sometimes we do things offline than, disrupting the team and so on. So we need to understand the importance of being a team member
Absolutely.
and promote the success of that particular team.
Absolutely. And, am I saying that was the last time I made that mistake?
No.
No way. There are times when I'm the most dysfunctional member. There are times when I'm the most dysfunctional leader. And in the future, that will continue. There are some times when I've been a good team member. There are times when I have been effective leader. So it continues. I just want to tell you, I ain't perfect at all.
Yeah, I think I like your humility, because nobody is perfect when it comes to whether as a team leader or as a team member, because we always break something here, something there. But the most important thing is our heart, understanding that it's not all about us individually. It's about the team. When we understand that, whenever we make that mistake here and there, we admit our mistake. We continue to improve and grow ourselves as team players.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that humility is very important to know that. Otherwise, nobody is perfect. We can't say that, hey, from now onward, I will be a perfect team player and I will never make a mistake. We can't really say that. So that's a good point.
Right on.
Yeah. Is there any one individual or a group of people that you admire for their teamwork and their team playing ability? And what kind of lessons have you learned from them?
Good question. I have so many heroes in my life, especially even to this day. I want to mention two women who I work with. One is my COO, Chief Operating Officer, Patty Robertson.
Okay.
And she's my role model. And there are times when things are tough, I delegate to her, especially when it comes to team matters. A couple of things I have seen her do. Every Monday, my team has kind of more like operational conference call. Every Monday, my team is our gathering, not physically, but virtually.
Okay.
So everyone gathers on Mondays, 11:30 from everywhere. We have some people in New York and others in Minnesota and others in Atlanta or Jacksonville, Florida, or in Washington, D.C. So we all aggregate via conference call. And one thing Patty does is it's a 1-hour meeting. She always starts and finishes on time. Number 2, she's well organized. Number 3, she's always very articulate. Whatever people need to know, she will share. And she spends more time having them speak. She speaks less and allows people to talk. So she does this every Monday. And so whenever I invite people to our group, that's a meeting I invite them to. And they always walk out very impressed, because Patty is just like, I think the key thing about her is she's always listening more. That's her power. Another person is perhaps a person that you and I know.
I know, yeah.
Is Catherine Zaranis, who is my business partner.
Yeah.
And one thing she does as a leader, whenever she leads meeting, is she listens to other opinions to create consensus. And I always admire Catherine for doing that. She may have the answer. She's the smartest woman I know. But she always listens to everyone at the table and to create consensus. And when she's a member of a meeting group or a member or just a participant, what she does is, if there are things she does not like, she does not speak about it. But if there is something she likes, she compliments. So she uses her energy to affirm than to distract. I think, when I kind of reflect myself, what I learned from these people is, if I'm in a meeting and if I don't like something, I'm the one who says, I don't like that. But Catherine always is a good model for me to say, you know what? Talk about what you like rather than what you don't like. And Patty I tend to want to talk more. But Patty is about listen more. That's the power. So these are the two women who've been my good role models.
Great people. You mentioned two key things here. I want to emphasize on them. The first one is about Patty, which is about listening. Because we talked about listening in our previous session when we talked about communication and how much communication is key when you listen. Because if you don't listen, there is no communication at all.
You're right.
And also you mentioned about forging consensus when it comes to Catherine. So can we spend a little bit time on the importance of listening and consensus building when it comes to forging, nurturing, and leading teams?
Let's talk about listening a little bit. Let's say I'm working with 5 people. listen, these 5 people have very different ideas. And a few times I've been very effective. I'm effective when I listen to the 5 people. And these 5 people express what they think. Just listen to them, what they have to say. And when one person says something I don't like, that's not the end of the conversation. It's not the end of the universe. You just hear them out. There may be a little something from what they say that may be part of the solution. It may be a little bit of what person number 4 said that may be part of the solution. So consensus and listening are tied together, because whenever I facilitate, whenever I build solutions, it's listening to each person, what's important to them, and then building what each person values into the final solution that builds a consensus. So for that reason, like, let me take you back to the Ethiopian community. A lot of people are after unity. I'm after collaboration. I think if I can use Ethiopian terminology, there is a word andinet and there is a word hebret. I prefer the word hebret. Hebret is when we are not all one and identical. Okay, we are all distinct, unique people. But it's when we find that thing we have in common and kind of rally around that. So consensus is when people who are totally different find that little thing each person shares from one person one idea, another person another idea, and then when that forms a solution that is completely different that we can all live by.
Yes,
so I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, yes, helps a lot. I want to ask. Last time I asked our guest about how he trained himself to listen, because I have been struggling to listen, because part of it is the problem of the misunderstanding about listening, and communication. I used to think that as far as you speak, as far as you extend your message, you think you are communicating, but if you're not listening, you're not fully communicating. It's incomplete without listening. So I should train myself. I must train myself, and I trained myself to listen. I just want to know whether you had that struggle in listening, and whether you use some methods or some approach to improve your listening skills.
That's a good, to come back to maybe that humility factor you talked about.
Yeah.
I think in business settings, I have been very effective because I'm on guard. But within my family, when my wife and daughter and I plan a vacation, I tend to be dictatorial. There is a place I want us to go. There are things I want all of us to do. And my wife sometimes says to me, you know what? If you just listen to, she reminds me, she says, you know what? Just find out what all of us are about and everything will work out. And with that reminder, I kind of use my business skills and say, you know what? Maybe I need to listen to what the two of you have to say, and then we work it out. So a little reminder from an outside really helps. Someone who knows you, and your wife, a family member tells you, this is a moment to listen. That has been my tool.
No, that's great, because sometimes we don't even know whether we are listening or not. In your case, whenever your wife comments about you're not listening, you listen to her. But some people, they think that they are always right, and they don't think that they are missing something from their team members, from their closer people. They keep on doing the same thing without listening and making corrections. So as team leaders and team members, we need to understand that listening is one of the key factors to succeed as team members.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that you have a successful consulting business, and you have diverse team members in your team. And also I have seen that you bring people from diverse cultures. So you must have some kind of approach, methods that you use to succeed in that kind of approach, in bringing diverse people into the team and playing that team leader role. Do you want to really tell us a little bit about your approach, or the methods you use, the approach you have been engaging with that helps you to succeed, so that other team leaders also may learn something out of that approach?
There are things, I have not used these things consistently. But I think the three, as I was thinking about this conversation, the three things I always come to, one is I am wrong more than I am right.
Okay.
So whenever I'm wrong, I'm the first guy to find out I'm wrong. And when that happens, regardless of who I deal with, I tell them I'm wrong and I'm sorry. Actually, the word I use is very biblical. I say, I repent. I remember one time having a conflict with one of my employees, and a very heated conflict. Very heated conflict. And so I kind of reflected back, and I called him back and say, I repent. I have been wrong, and you're right. So that, I find that button quickly sometimes, and whenever that happens, peace is created. And so I think that's one of the things I have used many times in business and in personal settings. Another one is, I don't have always the answers. So even as a leader of my company, I rely on others. I delegate effectively. I remember the very first contract we won. I was working for a company full time, and the consulting job was more like a
part-time
a side gig, so to speak, a small contract. So I hired one of my coworkers to work on this project, and next thing you know, his name is David. He was a happy camper. Guess what? His wife is a happy camper because he brings in money. I was a happy camper because I didn't have to do all the work. My client was a happy camper because it was done well. Mm-hmm. So I think from that time on, I always delegate. I used to train myself. I'm a very good trainer. And whenever I find someone who does a better job than I am, I just pass the baton and have them do the work. So within my company, we share the role of leading and following, alternatively. Okay. We take turns to lead, we take turns to follow. So I'm on a project team when I'm making copies and run errands. And there are times when I lead, so there is no one set person who leads. So we call that a flat organization. So my company is known as a flat organization.
Wow.
Any of us can lead one day, any of us can follow another day. So, between, I guess, the repenting, the delegating, as well as kind of sharing the work, I think that has been the secret within my company.
Wow. By the way, those successful companies I know, I have researched it, they use this flat organizational design where people can really innovate from anywhere in the organization. They don't need to wait from the top person to tell them what to innovate, what to do, and so on, because that's a flat organization. And I think it may not work, for some settings, but if you have a flat organizational design, I think it's great for teamwork, and that really gives the opportunity for each individual to innovate and also play their roles.
Absolutely.
Yeah, about you mentioned about the shifting between leading and following, because one of the misconceptions about teamwork is that people think that they always should lead or always follow. But I think there should be these sometimes leading, sometimes following, because if we don't know how to follow, it's very hard also to lead.
Absolutely.
Would you please tell us a little bit more on that?
I don't want to be philosophical. I'm a very practical person, depending on the task I had.
Yeah.
There are times when, let's say just a month ago, we needed, more like a signature stamp. Okay? A signature stamp. I'm just giving you a good example.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of our copying and printing and all kinds of things at a place called Staples. Staples is a good company. This promotion is pro Staples. So they give us a good deal. They are our business partners. So, listen, when that was needed, I walked to Staples and, put my signature and placed an order, and they lost an order. So, and I was out of town and needed to be done in a different town. So at that time, I asked our team members to go ahead and do it. So in other words, there are times when I do the work myself, and there are times when others do it. So we it's just natural. It's like in a family, like within my family, my wife is an excellent cook, and I'm an excellent dishwasher. And I consider that an honor.
A good combination.
It's a great combination. The dishes have to be washed, and I do that. It's the only skill I got. So it just comes natural. So we can be very philosophical about it.
Yeah.
And maybe Assegid can write a book on that one. But I'm very practical. So I only do what I'm good at for the moment. So I hope that helps.
I think the challenge for some people is that, when they are leaders, they assume that they are best whenever they give orders or give directions or putting in place strategies. but sometimes it is very important also, to roll your sleeve and go and, do something, at the ground level, at the lower level, and also take some assignments, maybe help one of the team members or something like that. So I just want to emphasize the importance of people sometimes making shifts in their roles. Sometimes they may lead, sometimes they may follow. So if they have that kind of attitude like you do, I believe they succeed in their team.
Absolutely. Let me tell you just a quick story.
Yeah.
Many years ago, I was a supervisor of a team.
Okay.
A team that I never met. So I landed in a place where we're doing this project, and the team came later on. So I went there and took care of all the logistics and the place they stay and everything else. So I went and picked them up from the bus station. And so we just, got them to their place where they stay and then took them to eat. So we were eating, having lunch.
Okay.
And so I was kind of doing all the logistical work. And one of them said, we now want to meet our boss, because they expected the boss to be someone who will order others. So I was just running around, picking their bags and putting them where they slept and their food, and said, well, I'm your boss. So we just had a great time together. How about that? So that's my story.
Interesting. It's a powerful story, yes. Someone who is a leader but serving them, because, in some teams, I believe that in most teams, if people see that their leader is serving, it's not that hard for them also to serve and contribute their share for the success of their team. So that's a good humility from a leader to serve. So that's a key word, because in most settings, for example, in corporate settings especially, you may find a leader serving in, for example, in charity organizations or in voluntary settings and so on. But sometimes you may not find that a lot in corporate setting, where your leader is also a servant to his team. Now, let's talk about why teams fail, because we could be able to see great teams succeeding around us, but unfortunately sometimes we see also teams failing. I believe that you may know some teams that have succeeded, and also I believe you have seen some teams failing. So why do you think teams fail?
Very good question, Assegid. Let me share with you one of my professors. I went to school at Florida State.
Okay.
And very famous person, a person by the name of Bruce Tuckman. Those of you who are watching, you can just Google Bruce Tuckman on stages of team development. So he invented. I
quoted him in my book. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's my professor, dean of my college.
Wow.
Bruce Tuckman, stages of team development. I want to encourage everyone to go. If nothing else, you may not remember everything I said today. Just go there and look it up. So basically, he invented 5 stages of team development. Stage number 1, forming. Stage number 2, storming. Stage number 3, norming. Stage number 4, performing. Stage number 5, adjourning or transforming. So let me kind of go back to those 5 stages. Forming is when teams come together. It's that polite stage, handshaking, smiling more. We are happy to be together, learning about, working together. Immediately after forming, storming happens. That's when the infighting, once you get to know, value clashes, opinions clash, all those things happen. That's just stage 2 of 5 in any team formation. Then after that, infighting, norming happens. That's when boundaries are known, okay? We've done the fighting, now it is time to kind of settle down and where the boundaries are. Roles are clarified, and responsibilities are allocated. And then we perform. That's when real accomplishment happens. And then after that, if it's a temporary team, they adjourn, right?
Yeah.
Or if it's a permanent team, they transform into becoming an effective, powerful team. So probably the most important stage, a necessary stage, is that storming stage, when it's necessary. I'm sure, within the Ethiopian communities, whether it is a political party or whether it is a community organization or even a church, storming is going to happen. I have seen churches at each other's throat, community organizations or well-meaning political parties. That is natural. That's not only within our community. Some people think that's a curse. That's not a curse. That's a necessary step. Listen, even as husband and wife, when two people meet, they are in love, they can't get enough of each other, they are finishing each other's sentences, guess what? Before even honeymoon kicks in, storming happens, fighting happens. That's just natural. So when you are aware of these steps in any team development, I think it's very helpful for members and leaders to know and kind of be patient. This is not a curse. It's not because some people are bad, not because some people are vicious, or some people are saints. We are all human beings. These stages of team development happen. So I think the solution to any team, steady, stable team, is to be aware of these stages. And I think teams fail when they are not aware of these natural progressions of teams, and then they just take things personal and pack up and leave. So I think that would be my short answer.
Yeah, I like this stage because especially as you emphasized, in the forming stage, everybody is happy camper and everybody comes together and expectant, happy and so on. But the next thing they know is storming up happens. And storming is normal. As you said, if especially if the leader is not aware of this stage, he may not be able to calm down people, telling them that, hey, this is natural. As you said, this is not just us. In every situation, you may find yourself in the storming stage where you may have some conflicts. You may have some priority fights, or maybe you're trying to impose yourself, your interests, your priorities, without considering the priorities, the interests of other people who are diverse, who are from different background and diverse cultures. So the leader should know the stage. And as you say, the most important part is the storming stage. If they pass that one, things become normal and then they start to perform. What else? I mean, I was researching and I could be able also to see that there are some other challenges. I know you can give me more stories because you have been working with lots of teams. Sometimes teams may fail because the team may not have a vision, or maybe they don't have a set clear goals. When they don't have that kind of direction, vision, and set goals, they may frustrate and they may fail. So do you have any story, or how do you see that kind of challenges for teams to fail?
That's I'm glad you asked that question, Assegid. I want to just go back to those stages. I want to stay on those stages.
Okay.
And by the way, if you happen to have a community group or a church group or a political party, whatever it is, early on, I know you are fascinated by the name. I know you are fascinated by what you can accomplish. One of the things my company does is team transition training. Let's say when a new team is formed, especially in America where there are elected officials, mayors, governors, presidents, people who run offices, or you may be newly appointed as president of a company. So we have a training program when you are the new guy or the new gal running this organization, is to have a team transition training. What is that about? What that is for you to really know that organization a little bit, and for people to know your expectations of you, expectations of each other. You've seen mayors, who are elected landslide, only to find out 3 years, 4 years later, people want to just kick them out. And if they only take one of our training courses, team transition training, where those mayors lay out foundation, lay out expectations, with key stakeholders within their organization, then everything, I think, would work out. So there is a time when training is essential. But to the point you made, I think the forming stage is essential. Aside from being polite to one another, shaking hands and getting to know one another, that is where purposes need to be defined, vision needs to be defined, roles and structure. That's a time to do all of that before things get stormy, as they say. So I think during the storming phase, focus on values, talk about values, talk about behaviors, talk about responsibilities. In norming, when it is time to kind of stabilize, that is a time to kind of to clarify boundaries, when accountabilities are established, more communication, more appreciation, more recognition. By doing that, celebrate the small things. Celebrate the small things, so that helps team members become affirmed and more committed. In performing stage, empowering team members. Delegate. That's a stage to delegate some of the work. If you are the leader of the group, give some assignment, some ownership of some of the pieces to some team members. That's a time maybe to talk about some succession matters, because the team is stable. When the team is not stable, may not be the time to talk about delegation or succession. But when the team is performing, the time to pick some leaders and coach them and have them take responsible positions. So there is no quick fix other than doing these essential things as a team goes through progress. Emphasize again the need for appreciation, the need for recognition of very little things. Your team may not be winning the big war, but the little fights you are able to accomplish, celebrate those.
Great points. Let's talk about the opportunities and the challenges this generation enjoys and faces respectively when it comes to globalization, technology, internet, multiculturalism. What are the opportunities this generation has but the previous generation didn't have? And what are the challenges this generation is facing in terms of teams having some challenges which didn't exist, let's say, in the previous generation?
I would say, every one of our viewers, each one of you is an expert on this subject because you've been in this generation.
Definitely.
Each of you will have better answers than I do. One of the obvious ones, this is no-brainer, is the fact we are able to do a lot in less. For example, I remember when I was at age 7, I was a coffee trader, and I used to travel 6 hours on foot with my cousin to buy coffee, and another travel 4 hours on foot to sell that coffee. Nowadays, you can do it on a bike, you can do it on an airplane, or do it by car in less time. The fact we can do more with less in less time because of communication or transportation is no-brainer. Everyone knows that, right?
Yeah.
Like now, what will take me maybe 10 days or a month, I can do it in 1 hour because of communication or all technology that's available. So everyone knows that. I did not say anything that you don't know.
Yeah.
So I think where we are because of technology, it has brought very diverse people together. In the city, there are people from all walks of life, from different nationalities and backgrounds who live together. So I think one advantage is diversity is made possible nowadays because we are together in one space, and we can get a lot done. And I think some of the challenges in the opportunity. The fact you can reach me anytime by cell phone. You can reach me anytime by email. It means we are working day and night. We are accessible to our colleagues and to our bosses and to our clients anytime. I am notorious for sending an email to my colleagues on weekends, which would be a family time. So that's a challenge. We are working all the time, burning out all the time. That's why the vacation. I talked about Susan, the one who I work with yesterday, working that budget. Guess what? She's in West Virginia with her family now. And this morning I received a text telling me while she's vacationing with her family, texted me and said, "Oh my goodness, I forgot to put footers." So I said, you know what? Go back vacation.
Enjoy it.
I fixed that already. So we are always working. We are always overdrive. So I think that's kind of the challenge. Our quality of life is compromised. We are working all the time. But the opportunities we are working with people, amazing people. We are collaborating, across oceans. So
what about multiculturalism? These days, people, whether in person or virtually, working with people from diverse cultures. That brings sometimes a challenge to bring people, from diverse culture and lead people from different cultures. In that instance, when you have diverse people from diverse cultures, what kind of considerations team leaders should put in place to make sure that diverse team works?
That's a subject all by itself, Assegid.
Definitely,
The issue
yeah.
of multiculturalism, diversity. I think for me it just is natural because I work with people of different faith and different nationalities and different backgrounds and all kinds of things. And one thing I learned is whoever is in front of you for the first time, that person is a complete stranger. So I know a little something about working with complete strangers. So, my thing is just listen to their stories and listen to what they bring to the table without any judgments whatsoever, regardless of their faith, regardless of, the fact their faith is different from yours or the fact their language is different from yours, is to I listen to them and I hear their stories and find something in common. And I'll give you one quick example. One day I met a Chinese man, and that's, maybe that's one culture where I have never been to China, and I don't have any personal friends. So we just, our kids were playing, and then, his kid and my kid were playing at a park. And so we all came together, parents with different backgrounds, just met right there. And so after some conversation, I found out he's going to my neighborhood. And so I offered him, when he said, okay, he's going to Florida, to my neighborhood. I said, you know what? I offered him that, if he goes there, here are some of my friends, and here is kind of, where I stay. If you need a place to stay, you are free to stay. I just, just had a pleasant conversation. Next thing you know, he and I have been exchanging email for the long time. I mean, he and I have very little in common. We just met, while our kids were playing together. And next thing you know, we've been, exchanging emails for the longest.
Wow.
So you can reach out to anybody different from you.
One other thing I would like you to explain to our viewers is about what kind of roles team leaders should play for their team to succeed. I know there are roles team members should play, but what are the most important contributions team leaders should put in place to succeed in their team leadership position?
Assegid, I am not, as I think I said, I'm no expert on the subject. There are people who know this better.
Just from personal experience, from what you have read,
Yeah, a couple of things that I have done that have worked very well. A few years back, I did a few community volunteer events, and there are a few things that really worked that really worked well. I was the founding chair for a sister city relationship established between the city of Jacksonville and city of Port Elizabeth. I think they now call it Nelson Mandela City or something. That's what they call it now. So when we went through that, I was the leader. So I was busy recruiting people to be members of my team. I think I had something like 25 community volunteers. So I'll tell you a few things I did. When we traveled to South Africa at the time, I made sure as a leader of that group, I made sure there is diverse people, diverse as I meant, I made sure there was a white man on our team, and there was a black man on our team, a white woman and a black woman, and, a couple Africans on the team. So we're a team of 7, but I made sure all 7 of us were different. So when we went to South Africa representing America, we represented America in a sense. So that's something I accomplished.
Wow.
So kind of having diversity in the group was something we did. I think I remember the last thing I did was I wanted to do that only for 18 months. My job was to bring a team together, to create a sister city relationship. And since we were in Jacksonville, Florida, and the other city was in Port Elizabeth, as they called it then, we did it via a video conference. So the city council of that city and the mayor of that city came, and the mayor of our city and the city council came together via video link. So we did the twinning ceremony via video, at the time. So I was kind of the presiding chairman of that group. Guess what? That was my last day on that job. So instead of saying, oh my goodness, have a victory lap, I've done this for 18 months and I'm going to do 2 years or forever, that did not happen. So when I began, I had a co-chair of my team who would step in when I stepped down. So I stepped down and he stepped in. So we did that 12 years ago. And so the team, I know the president of that group or the chairman of that group. So so one is know when it is time for you to leave that team. Why? Why is that important? Leaders are human beings.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a human being. I have varying interests, okay? Like, yesterday my wife cooked kitfo and we love kitfo. Today I don't want to eat kitfo. I want to eat something else, right? So leaders are people like that. You have different interests. You don't want to do the same thing forever. So you want to move on. So have other people who have interest to kind of run the show rather than hanging in there forever. So I would just say that's the last thing I say on teams.
Okay. You mentioned earlier about succession plan. It's very important to put in place a succession plan for a company to succeed. Companies I know, organizations I know that succeeded, they have this succession plan in place and they are articulate in terms of putting in place a very successful plan. Shall we talk a little bit on that?
Absolutely. As I said early on, the first question you asked was, are team necessary? When my wife was doing Heritage Night at my daughter's school, she ran the show. And she used teamwork to get it done. She did not need any succession planning in doing that. However, when I talked about city of Jacksonville, sister cities, that's something that required team organization. So just to limit to teams, we don't want to politicize this and talk about a country or an organization.
Yeah.
However, at a team level, since the subject is a team, I led 2 teams in Jacksonville, Florida. One is, Chamber of Commerce based, where I think I was the founding chairman of small business training program. So we started training small businesses in our city. So I was the presiding founding chairman of that group. So day one, what I did was to make sure when I was the chair, there was a co-chair. So 2 years later, the co-chair who knew everything, who did half of the work, became the chair. And then he had another co-chair. So that's kind of my very practical way of doing this. Don't do anything. I don't do anything unless I have a co-chair. So that when I'm not there, that work will be done. Because I get bored because I don't want to do something every day. So when I'm not there, that person can run the show. We are kind of sharing the leadership. And also when I step down, that number 2 person becomes number 1. Kind of create that culture. So at a practical level, to create a co-chair or co-leader or a vice president of some kind is a way to kind of ease the notion of succession planning. Maybe at organizational level, country level, that's another topic where we can get deep into that.
Yeah, we are talking about at organizational level. Those successful organizations, they select their successors, train them, empower them, delegate them. As you said, they become their co-president or co-CEO or whatever they give the name they prefer. But they make sure that they are very close to them so that when they retire, they have someone to continue to lead that team. But unfortunately, some leaders, they do that when they become too old, or they do that maybe while they are on their deathbed. And that's unfortunate. So that's why we need to take a serious consideration to put in place a succession plan. And I know many organizations, it takes them maybe years to prepare for a succession plan.
Assegid, I think that's a totally, a subject worthy of its own
yes.
topic. But in the context of team, if work is shared and leadership is rotated and responsibilities are rotated, no 2 leaders are going to lead an organization or a team in the same way.
No way.
So let that person run it themselves. So I'm kind of believer, let that person run it their ways. Like, the 2 women I admire.
Yeah.
When I lead a meeting, it's done my way. I don't want them to be a copy of me.
Yeah.
When Patty leads, she leads her way.
Yeah.
So it's okay for someone to do their way.
Yeah.
And when I lead my way, so kind of like let them find their own space is kind of something we experimented with, and everything is okay.
Yeah, I think I remember once I read about how General Electric selected its CEO. The CEO may lead up to 10 years or 20 years. When it is time, that person to leave that position, they put in place like 3 people, and pass them through lots of testing phases, giving them opportunities to lead, asking them, and so on and so forth. And finally, the CEO, the incumbent, will choose one of them, and that person should be approved by the board of directors. So it's obvious that that person, when he choose one of them, he, take into consideration lots of things. But I don't think that he's picking someone who leads like himself. But at least he may want to know whether that person really maintains the values of that organization, the vision of that organization, and so on and so forth. Gabe, we had a wonderful time. If you have anything to say to our audience.
Anything I want to say to my audience? I would say maybe in closing, remember Bruce Tuckman, stages of team development. Like every team goes through those 5 stages that I talked about. The forming, the storming, the norming, the performing, and then either adjourning or transforming. So remember that if you forget anything and everything that Assegid and I talked about, remember Bruce Tuckman, who happened to be my professor. Read that, and I hope you are inspired. And also, as you introduced in introducing me, one of my volunteer gigs in helping our community become effective is the Power of Networking workshop I do. It's a free workshop. I have been doing it in different community groups, and I'll be delighted to do that. If you want me to do that for you, please let me know at the email address I gave, gabe.hamda@icat.net. icat is spelled as I as in India, C as in Charlie, A as in Apple, T as in Tom.net. Thank you.
We're going to provide them on the screen about your email so they can contact you and talk to you about Power Network. Gabe, on behalf of ISAT and our viewers, thank you very much for coming. We had a wonderful discussion.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Thank you. Dear our viewers, we just concluded topic 2, team building. Next week, we're going to have a new topic. Until I see you next week, have a wonderful time. Thank you very much for watching.